Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. I before I begin my presentation, I want to give Dr. Escobedo a big thank you for setting it up because I think this is really the evolution of a socio-ecological system into social cultural systems. So I didn't know your presentation, and I'm so glad that you created the presentation because it's going to give us the platform to have a conversation, which is what I want to have with you all today. Before I continue, I want to do a little centering exercise with all of you. The first thing I'm going to do is actually have you stand up because we're going to be sitting down for a really long time, and I want to make sure that your blood flow and you guys are awake and the coffee's kicking in. Um, so what you're going to do is you're going to be a tree and put your hands up like a tree. There you go. And then you're gonna move a little bit, just like if the wind was passing. There you go. And then you're gonna go up one more time. There you go. And now you're gonna sit down. Thank you for entertaining that. Thank you, thank you. Again, I want to make sure that you guys are awake. Um, so I really want to have a conversation with you all today about, strategies for community engagement. I know we all do it, right? Raise your hand if you do community engagement. Raise your hand. Proud. Yes, thank you very much. Raise your hand if you love your volunteers. Raise your hand. Yes, yes, thank you. Raise your hand if you sometimes think that your work, you don't know if it works or not. Yeah, right? Yes, yes, I know we're gonna go there. Everybody's like, according to my reports, it works really well. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that we're all here to talk about community engagement. So so my goal for today is really just to gain practical strategies and insights to elevate your organization's engagement approach, ensuring that every project is responsive, accountable, and impactful in addressing the unique needs of your community. I think that I really love the question that the young lady in the front asked about, intersection of funding. I think that that's something that I'm going to talk about today, and really how are we engaging that conversation at Northeast Trees. Um, so that's the goal. I'm going to give you a little bit about like why am I here talking to you about this and who am I? So I've been doing community engagement for over 20 years in the United States, Mexico, and the Caribbean. I come from the field of public health, which we're all talking about, as a community organizer. I also have worked for a really long time in public media as a reporter, producer, and working in radio, digital, television, bilingual print media. And I've also done environmental mobile technology as an entrepreneur, as well as racial justice and anti-oppression community facilitator and trainer. And I work in the field of environmental equity and urban forestry. So I really talk about intersectionality. It's pretty much what I have been talking about for over 20 years. I think everybody else just caught up to me. So I want to talk a little bit about Northeast Trees. I know you all know the organization. Northeast Trees has been around for over 30 years. We're a community-based nonprofit organization that helps heal environmental injustice. Through urban forestry, nature-based design, build habitat restoration, and workforce development. So here goes that question about workforce development. We have been tackling that question for 30 years. We work in underrepresented communities in the county and the city of LA to build climate resilience through stewardship, planting, design, and community engagement. And again, I'm going to talk about community engagement. So I am going to talk about this idea of transactional and transformative. So I want to ask you, who feels brave enough to tell me their definition of transactional as we know it? Raise your hand. Yes. Right. It's an exchange. What about transformative? We're hearing about all these interdisciplinary, words. What does transformative mean to you? Anybody? And there is no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever you think. Go for it, sir. Changing of a system through action and revolution. He's clearly an academic, and that if I were to write that as a definition, that would be ideal. Yes, that is exactly what transformative means. And I really want to talk about how you as an organization can really move from transactional, the idea of providing a service, to transformative. And I'm going to break it down a little bit more of what that means. So transactional changes focus on direct actions within an existing structure. We talked about structures. I love that Professor Escobedo broke that down because it's going to be helpful for our conversation, such as providing services, providing local facilities, and implementing community programs. Who here has a community program that you love? Raise your hand. We all do, right? I want you to tell me about your community program. Somebody that raised your hand, I want you to talk to me about your community program. I saw a hand. Go for it. Nice. Thank you. Anybody else? Tell me about your community program. Go for it, sir. Nice. I love that. Okay, so I want to make sure you guys heard his program. So he works with veterans and with trees and around mental health. How many of you 5 years ago or 10 years ago thought that urban forestry would be the intersection of all of that? How many of you know, right? No one. But yet that's what he does. Again, I want to show you that there's a diversity of programming in this room. Anybody else? Who else wants to share their program and be proud about it because it's your program? Go for it, Aaron. I know you want to talk. Yeah.
Well, like I was saying earlier, Northeast Trees has oh sorry, Northeast Trees, based in Northeast LA, has opportunities that other parts of the city don't. In that we have a lot of natural open space left, so we've been able to um, preserve and enhance natural open space through native plantings, working with young people, providing job opportunities and training, and working with the broader community with that goal. So it's a that's one of the programs that we're most proud of, I suppose.
Nice. Thank you, Aaron. Anybody else? Yes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So I'm Mona from Tree Fresno, and this is
Hi.
Anissa and Joseph here. Anissa is a graduate of probably my favorite program at Tree Fresno, and it is a workforce development program that we started about 3 years ago. We've had three cohorts,
Mm-hmm.
and we have worked with formerly incarcerated in anti-gun violence groups for advancement in education, awareness of the value of urban trees and tree related careers. And we've had just amazing cohorts. It's been very challenging to work with them, but it's been very rewarding. And we have basically introduced the concept of the value of urban trees to Southwest and West Fresno,
Wow.
which has opened doors for Tree Fresno in these areas of town where we need to be planting more trees.
Wow. I mean, again, are you just like the creativity in the space of the intersectionality of working with young people, working in different areas? And I think ultimately what I want again is to have a conversation. Thank you so much for everybody who shared. So I'm just gonna keep, describing this, but these are often necessary forms of and these are often necessary forms of stepping stones that ultimately move you into from transformative to from transactional to transformative. Um, I want to talk a little bit about transformative so that we're on the same page. So on the other hand, transformative changes seek to alter the very framework of these systems. So what would be some systems that Dr. Escobedo talked about? If you guys can remember of his talk, what were some systems that we operate currently as in urban forestry? Policy, yes. What else? How about money? Where do we get our funding? Right? So either private or public funding, that's a system. What else? What about the infrastructures that we work with in our cities? Are they responsive to our needs, or do we have to kind of advocate sometimes? I what do you all think? Are they responsive, or do we need to advocate, or a little bit of both? A little bit of both, right? Good. So I want to give you an example of what I mean from transactional to transformative. So the example that I want to give is a community project that might start in improving local healthcare access, transactional, and simultaneously work towards establishing a community-run health system that shifts away from dependency of external providers that becomes transformative. Was that clear, or did you guys, it was pretty clear, right? Was there anybody need some clarification? No? Okay, we'll move right along. All right. So the reason why I talked about transactional to transformative is that you all can do this. You can do this in your workforce development. You can do this through your veterans program. And it's really about how do you engage your volunteers and how do you engage the folks who utilize your service to really own those services. Has anybody thought of what would happen if you were no longer needed in your community and the community could be self-sustained? Would that be would that be an ideal um, format for us, or would that be something that you never thought about? Like who has thought about that? Go for it.
Out, especially those of us who build coalitions.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll say our coalition, we built it because of this reason, and then hopefully one day we won't need a coalition.
Right.
That's and then we find out that once the coalition is gone, then yeah, so is the project.
Right. So a lot of systems and a lot of work throughout cities and spaces, depend on our work, depend on our activities, depend on our actions, depend on our volunteers, depend on things being sustainable. Um, I want to talk about in that interdisciplinary action, in these actions, what are some principles that organizations like yours can think about as you're moving or want to explore transactional actions in your nonprofits? So there's two principles that I would love to share with you both, share with you all. And the first principle is something that you already do, and that is commitment to invest. The first principle revolves around investing time, resources, money into a project with a specific community and for a select group of people. That's all of us, right? We know that we work with veterans. We know that we work with youth. We know that we work with force development. We know that we work in certain areas. This principle is fundamental to both transactional and transformative changes. In the transactional change, the investments are often aimed at immediate tangible outputs expected to benefit the community and target groups directly. The changes typically operate within a current system, frameworks attempting to optimize or improve specific elements of the existing structure. So like, what does that mean? Let me break it down for y'all. I apologize. I just want to make sure I gave you the textbook version and then we talked about really how do we apply this. So ultimately, it's about investing in your community. You dedicate time, you dedicate resources, finances to specific projects with a particular community. You have focus areas, direct investment into tangible community projects, targeted support for specific groups within your community. And there is a purpose, ultimately to achieve immediate and visible improvements that benefit members in your community. So from the three projects that I heard, working with veterans, working with young people, working, in Northeast LA, there's a purpose. The second principle that I want to kind of like illustrate is the motivation for change. The second principle emphasizes the intent to see change, which underlines transactional and transformative efforts. This desire for change motivates the commitment to invest and drive outcomes that significantly impact your community. Now raise your hand if you already do that. Right, you all are doing it, yes. So breaking down a little bit more, what that means is why you invest. Your ultimate goal is to witness real and meaningful change. Communities, you want to see them greener. If you're doing school greening, you want the schools to be greener. If you're interested in workforce development, you want young people to have jobs, but have a path towards a career. So the types of changes, again, just reinforcing it, is transactional, which is immediate improvements within existing structures, and transformative, which is long-term system change to fundamentally alter community dynamics. I want us to think about that for a minute. Raise your hand if you already do transactional change, right? Most of us. Raise your hand if you ever thought about long-term systems change to fundamentally alter community dynamics. for those of you who raised your hand, I want you to tell me what conversations you're having in your organizations about that. Whoever has their hand raised, and who hopefully it's not spoken. I see this gentleman over here. Sorry, yeah, go for it.
Maybe I shouldn't always raise my hand. It's transactional change or what is it? The other one's
Transformative.
transformative. And you want an example?
I mean, if you thought of really looking at transformative change from your organization or from your collective or your community.
Well, this is our University of California Master Gardener Group in Long Beach. So we've got several projects going at any given time, and all of them are difficult, but the one I think that is the most difficult right now is we want to plant one of these mini forests. I think the term for it is Miyawaki.
Microforest.
Right.
Yes.
So our target is this very expansive now grass lawn at an elementary school in area. But not only is the principal not interested, but she blew off the school board member who went to talk to her about that. So I'm at a loss as to what to do in the transactional part of that. Did I?
Yeah, you did. And again, I want to make sure that I, illustrate that this is very academic language. I was trying to not to give you the PowerPoint that Dr. Escobedo did. I'm trying to give you a little bit different. But yes, it is very academic, and yes, you're right. So for the folks who also raised their hand, does anybody want to share a little bit about your vision or what you think of transformative in your organization? Go for it. Oh, sorry.
My name is Carlos Campero, and I'm the new executive director at City Plants. To that, the reason I worked at the LA Conservation Corps for 35 years. And in that vein, I wanted to do the transformative by changing people's minds about what a tree can do.
Right.
And unfortunately, because there was so much other aspects of my job, I couldn't focus solely on urban forestry. And so this opportunity came up, and here I am. But my thought process has always been, like a tree starts out as a seed, and then it becomes something that, it cleans the air, it brings beauty, it brings you peace, it helps our mental health. All of that is transformative.
Right.
And the impact that a tree makes on a person, on a community, on a school, there's studies, there's research. How do you employ all of that research so that you're hitting more than just one topic or one area?
Right.
And where something transformative is more than just the carbon sequestration that a tree provides, because that's what we're applying to, no offense to Henry, to CAL FIRE to fund the planting of the tree. Well, I have to explain to Henry, I know that you're concerned about carbon sequestration, but the children that walk to the school where I want to plant trees there's research that shows that if they walk to school on a tree-lined street, then they're going to perform better when they get to school. They'll feel better about themselves and their community when they're walking to school. Thereby, when they go to school, they'll do better.
Right.
If we're doing this in South Central Los Angeles, where I grew up, where there were no trees, or there were trees in the 70s when I was in school and now they're not there, then kids are performing better in traditionally underserved communities where children are challenged, don't always go to college or don't always get that job that they really need in order to make a difference in their families. So that's where I see the transformative part. And in our roles, I think we have to think bigger than just, wow, this funding is going to help me keep my 4 people employed. That's part of it, but it's what we can do through that vein of keeping people employed. There's so much more to it. We talked about the 30-year plan for a tree rather than 5 years.
Right.
In the city of LA, there's a mandate. You have to, whenever you're going to plant a tree, you need 5 years of maintenance and watering, which is great, but that's where people stop. right? As long as I get those 5 years, but we need to think about that tree and what it's going to do and produce and do, and just like branches,
Right.
I'm preaching here, but just like branches and they touch so many things, that's the thought process we have to have, I believe,
Right.
and transformatively, that there's more to it than just that one linear thing that we were thinking about in the beginning.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Yes. And I saw there was two hands over here. Yes.
of Arlene with Canopy. A few things came to mind when we were talking about transformative action. I think internally and organizationally, we've had anti-racist trainings and
Right.
inclusive trainings, Jedi
Right.
trainings, and that's the work that we try to do within our organization for all staff to have that background. We are working with BIPOC communities within my program, so just having that culturally sensitive approach to things. We've also talked about how we speak on our narrative for why the Green Gap exists, right?
Right.
I'm sure you guys all know about it, but also how we interact with our residents and how we go past the transactional one tree for your time, and how can we build more on that? Can we compensate you for your time for coming to an event? Can we provide food? Can we bring educational events to take care of the children while your full attention is on to the presentation or something like that? So we do try to take into account lived experiences and how everyone's reality is different. If they're working multiple jobs, how valuable is your time to come to one of our events and things like that?
Right. No, thank you. I want to say that everybody really gets it. I just everything you all mentioned is exactly on. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, just reminded from the gentleman from Long Beach, and transformative can be in this really deep thinking. Like I love what everybody's saying, but it can also occur in smaller elements. So over in
Yes.
Long Beach, about 25 years ago, a staff person asked me to help with a expansion they were doing with their wilderness area at El Dorado Park.
Right.
And so, they had trouble getting enough mulch there, and they wanted to do native plant planting, and they wanted the mulch to help, get the native plants to take hold and such, right? So because we had that resource at my company, we offered to help and do some large spreading with loaders and things like that. And just recently, because I'm really deep into everything with recycling and that whole,
Right.
ecological approach to urban forestry, I asked a staff person to go back to that place and take a picture. And that land has been transformed from kind of a dusty vacant lot to 25, 30-foot tall native plants and trees and that kind of thing. So sometimes those smaller little investments we make can really have and they do take time.
Right.
But we've done other projects like that, but it's a wonderful way to just use a resource from over here to support other resources. So just wanted to share that Long Beach story with you over there.
Thank you. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to share. Anybody else just had Diane tell their transformative story? Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you everybody for sharing. This is again, I want to have a conversation with all of you. So part of moving from transactional to transformative is a strategy. You have to know, you have to have some strategies in place. You just can't wishfully just be like, I want to do this. There has to be practices and there has to be measures. There has to be form of evaluation. As a cultural researcher, I love evaluation because I want to make sure if it works or not. And there are 4 strategies that I want you to explore, hopefully adapting in your programs that can make the transition from transactional change to transformative a little easier and very intuitive to already what you do. The first strategy is about participation and inclusion. This strategy emphasizes the importance of involving community members in decision-making processes. It's about ensuring that all voices, especially those marginalized or underrepresented groups, are heard and valued. How many of us have heard that? Many times, right? Yeah. This approach fosters a sense of ownership and provides relevant and responsive initiatives to the community needs. Do you all think that you do that already? I want to say yes. Yes, you all do that. I'm assuring that you are already doing that. The second strategy is about communication and transparency. Effective communication is crucial in building trust and understanding between the organization, collective, and the community. This involves not just disseminating information, but also actively listening to community feedback. Transparency in operation, decision-making, and resource use is essential to maintain credibility and accountability. Again, how many of you already do that? Raise your hand. Be proud of it. Yes, yes, you do that. Good. The third strategy is about empowerment and capacity building. Now, I heard earlier capacity building being tossed around, right? Yes. Empowering communities involves providing them with the skills, knowledge, and resources they need to effect change. Capacity building could include training, education, support that enables community members to take a leadership role, advocate for their needs, and sustain the initiatives long term. I'm gonna ask you again, how many of you already do that? Raise your hand proudly. Yes, good. As you can see, I wanna just point out that you're already doing all of this. I'm just naming what you're already doing. The fourth is about collaboration and partnership. Engaging with urban communities often requires, or rural, often requires partnering with other organizations, local governments, and stakeholders. Collaborative efforts can bring together diverse perspective, exercise, and resources, leading more effective and holistic solutions to community issues. How many of you are already doing collaborative partnerships? Raise your hand. This is a collaborative partnership. I just want to let you know that this is a collaborative partnership. So you are all collaborators of this partnership. Again, I just want to re-emphasize that you are already doing all these 4 strategies, and I just want to bring it all together to see how we can move from transactional to transformative. And you're probably thinking, how does this all work together, right? I have a video that I want to show about our native, our hyper-local native plant nursery that works around bioremediation, and how we use that as a jumping point to educate, to advocate, to inspire, and to also move towards transformative change in our Northeast LA community. It's about 3 minutes, so just bear with me, and it is about our program. And then I want to really have a discussion and if you have any questions about how we do what we do and how we got to where we're at. I really want to engage that conversation. So we're going to play this video. And the audio is going to work. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, should we leave it alone? Sorry. Should we remove that? I don't know. Sorry. It's we're all community. This is all part of it. There you go.
We're at Ascot Hills Park in the El Sereno neighborhood of LA. We're about 10 minutes from downtown LA. And Ascot Hills Park offers about 90 acres of just natural landscape for people to interact with, to come out and participate in, and to be at peace in.
I wouldn't say that the place Ascot Hills used to be, a speedway, was very inviting to the public, and that's why they organized together and made it a park.
Having access to natural open space, or just open space at all, is really critical to the public health, the mental health, the spiritual health of the people who live in this part of the city.
My favorite thing about the hyperlocal native plant nursery that we have here in Northeast Trees is the concept concept that it's a hyper-local native plant nursery. The opportunity that we have to be able to source all of our seeds and cuttings and propagations from the Northeast Los Angeles community, it's something that you don't see practiced in any other location.
We have a monthly volunteer every first Saturday of the month, and I just love teaching people what Northeast trees do, and I see the happiness, I see the way that they are glad to touch grass, glad to be here or involved. They feel part of something.
We allow our volunteers to come and help us out with these activities, and they also get to carry a piece of that back home with them if they decide to.
I love being the vessel of education that could either explain to them or show them and provide some tools or new skills that they could have back home.
Well, events are important to bring the community, to these beautiful natural places. Sometimes that the community isn't even aware exist here in the city. The benefits of this park are for everyone.
The point is not for all of us to have our own parcel of land. It's to share this land with each other and building that reciprocal relationship.
Okay, Q&A. There we go. That was easy. All right. Thank you for bearing watching the video. I know the audio was a little off, but you know what? Technology, you all read through it, and here we are. So I do have a series of questions, but before I ask you the series of questions of how we can engage this conversation, I just want to get a sense of where you all are and the information that I just kind of like laid down. Just want to make sure if you have any questions first or there's any clarifications that you need. But I really was hoping that we can have a conversation on how we can learn from each other about the idea of transactional to transformative change in your organizations and what we're doing at Northeast Trees to really move the needle in our programming to go from transactional to transformative. And I can break it down. So if anybody has any questions or any clarifications, I would love to hear what you all think. Yes.
Actually, can you break it down? So what's your transactional part and how does it lead to the transformative part?
Right. So I'm going to use Ascot Hills as an example. So our programming at the nursery. So our program at the nursery, we do a variety of things. So we have once a month, we have a volunteer program where we invite community members from all parts of LA to learn about how we use, how we're remediating the land through our native plant processes that we have. So we do cuttings, we do seeds, we really grow from the land to plant back into the local area. So we use that process as a learning tool to engage, to really bring all community members into our space. That's the first part. The second part is once they are in our sphere, they begin to grow within our organization. So we have volunteers that have been volunteering for years that begin their own green teams to really take on their own leadership models. Then they grow their own models. Then they outreach to go back into community to work within our nursery. So it's outside already of our own programming. They do it independently on their own as volunteer groups. Once they're active in their volunteer groups, they do the work on their own without us, just some guidance, that we continuously teach them through a series of workshops throughout the year, but ultimately they collectively do the organizing. They do their own outreach, they lead their own efforts, ultimately to mimic the same work that we do with our paid staff. From there, then they get to learn leadership roles to lead workshops. So not only do they learn, they get to lead, and then they get to bring back to their own communities and become, in many ways, our own ambassadors of our programming. From then, one of the conversations that we're having currently right now is with our city officials of like, what does this use of this land look like, and how can we collaboratively grow our programming, our access, and also continue to take care of this land so that it stays as a natural habitat, continued fueled by volunteer and our staff and all of our city partners, such as CAL FIRE, such as the city of LA, such as, Rec and Parks, all of these entities coming together to have a conversation with us about this space, a continued conversation about this space. So yes, I see Aaron, our director of urban forestry, who is
Yeah,
dying to say something.
thank you. I wanted to just piggyback on that and to answer a little more, Igor. Um, it's, really this idea of intentionality. Like Luis said, we're all doing this already, but having a specific intention to do it and a strategy is often the difference, makes the difference. As far as what we're trying to do and what we have been trying to do is like kind of build capacity and leadership very, very intentionally at Northeast Trees. And I'll just use an example. The nursery manager for our Ascot nursery, Diego Zapata is from, all of the young people who run the nursery are from the community, and we intentionally give them that opportunity. Could we have gone and hired some professional horticulturalists from a university? Yes, but we didn't. We wanted to train with the help of Relief. Thank you, Cindy and Relief. With the help of CAL FIRE, with the help of the Forest Service, we were able to put together funding, train those local young people to understand propagation and seed collection and nursery management. And now people like Diego is literally studying for his PhD at UCLA. He's studying local native trees as part of his work. And I understand he's now trying to form his own land trust in this community to start acquiring more land and preserving it as open space. So you see there's this whole cycle of capacity building that we use the nursery or trees as a vehicle
Right.
to grow, the community.
And ultimately, the other thing that we want to emphasize is that we're investing in people. That's the intention. So that's the part that I was going to get to, but we invest in people. We invest in people from our community. We invest in our volunteers. We invest not only time, resources, and money to be able to empower them to not need us. I know that's a very taboo thing to say, but we want to be able to empower them so that we can move to other areas and they can keep the work going. That is something that we as an organization have really seen as our nature-based solution to continue to impact our communities, specifically the communities that we work with, which are low income, working class, immigrant, renters. Most of our volunteers actually are renters, they're not homeowners. And that's the other thing that we have to navigate. How do we talk about them taking ownership of this collective space where they don't have a backyard or front yard? Then they see this as their collective space. So then it becomes their front and backyard that they feel empowered to maintain and to preserve. And that is really what our cornerstone program is rooted on, is that we invest in communities and people. Any questions? More questions? Yes.
Parts do they really come from? Yeah, because it's more so like the demographic, like what demographic do you guys attract? So that's an important thing to think about too.
So I'll start, but Aaron, if you want to say anything else. So a good number of our demographic is people from the community. So Hispanic, African American, working class, immigrant, young. The other thing that we notice is that we have a lot of young people wanting to touch earth, wanting to plant trees. Yes. Right. So a variety, the majority are still middle class. I rarely would say that upper middle class, but for the most part, working class and young. Families. The other thing too is that we attract a lot of families that really want to bring this type of education at a younger age. That's something that we have had to adjust to, working with families. Very recently, during our Pride Month celebration, we partnered with the city to do Kite Fest, and this is the 16th annual. But for the first time, we focus entirely on children's programming. And let me just say that we had 150 waivers and we ran out. So that means that in our programming, we ran out of waivers. So we had to, so I don't even know how many people we ultimately saw that day, because we thought that we were only going to see 150 families, but we had more families show up because of the unique programming that we are facilitating and thinking of, completely inspired by the community. The other thing about that programming, and I wish I could have, actually part of the recording was of that, was that we partnered with a local high school and high school students to teach younger children science-based education around native plants. It is, again, it was brought from the community. This was a local teacher who said, I have these active students, can we partner? And we were like, yes. Why wouldn't we partner with you? Because you have the capacity, you want to bring programming to us, and you want to do it for free. So we were like, yes, 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 yes. Yes. Go.
Was it just that one school that you guys have worked with, or like, because I know in Fresno we have a called the Golden Charter Academy, and they visit the zoo for natural education. So like, would you guys have the capacity to do something where schools can visit you on a weekly basis so they can get this education?
That's an Aaron question.
Yeah, we are active in a pretty, maybe not unique, but we're very urban where we operate. And so that nursery that we're just describing here, there are 30,000 school students within a 1 mile radius of that nursery. There is a major three major high
Three
schools.
major high schools.
Elementary, middle schools, and the demographic is mostly immigrant, low income people in these communities surrounding the park. So I know that's not the case with all organizations here. I mean, there's different demographics, but yeah, this is a very urban. It's not a challenge to work with school students in this particular case because they're abundant.
Yeah. So I had a question here. Sorry.
Great presentation. Outside of fundraising, can you share with us your top organizational challenges?
I'm gonna move that to Aaron. he's been.
Wow. I mean, I'm just going to say, and it's not a bad challenge. The challenge is keeping up with the demand. I think we could probably all agree in this room. We've seen, and I think Cindy was describing earlier. No, I'm sorry, it was yourself. The growth in the awareness of urban forestry and the need and the social value. 30 years ago, when I first started, it was not on many people's radar, and most people didn't know what the term even meant. There was no idea, oh, I can go into urban forestry as a career type thinking, and now it's everywhere. And along with it, fortunately, a lot of resources and growing. I think one of our challenges has been just building our internal capacity to keep up with that. We have 25 active projects right now at a time when in the past we would be lucky to have 1 or 2 projects a year, and it's just exploded. And once again, I'm not complaining. This is obviously a good problem to have, but we do struggle with growing quickly enough, and hiring and training and keeping our culture as an organization with, but also keeping up with the demand.
We'll go here. All right. So I'd like to know, so my board of directors at Tree Fresno, they're always very concerned about relying too much on unique funders that we've had in the last few years, because you never want to do that as a small nonprofit.
Right.
To keep up with your work. Do you have multitudes of funders? Do you have local funders? Do you, as well as your major funders like CAL FIRE, et cetera? So you have a great diversification of funders.
still the vast majority of our grants are government grants, but
Sure, sure.
I'm sorry. The majority of our funding still comes from government grants, but those governments include local city, county, state, of course,
Sure.
and now federal, of course, everyone. And that's kind of new for us. Federal funding was not our bread and butter up until recently.
And it
so-
probably won't remain bread
Yeah,
and
and it may
butter.
not remain.
Yeah.
So, but diversifying as far as bringing in private foundation or private donors has become more and more of a thing that we've had to do. And it's, I think, typically for any nonprofit, it's good to do that, diversify, like you said.
And I think your presentation, as well as gentlemen with the research, is going
Right.
to be pretty critical for that transformational. We're getting on the radar as trees are change makers in terms of mental and
Public
physical, et
health, mental
cetera.
health, all of
So
that.
I think that we've experienced that we look to typical funders, like our traditional funders, who aren't necessarily charged with funding the end results that our communities need. So we
Right.
have to look at non-traditional funders. So I think this conversation should be had of like health foundations, like business partnerships, especially locally, and then even angel investors, like change makers that aren't rooted in a limited set of outcomes, like climate specific, right? We're finding that our work and what the community wants is something else. They
It's
want to reduce violence
intersectional.
in communities. They want to improve
Right.
health outcomes. Why is it 20 years, longevity difference in North Fresno versus South, et cetera?
Right. So one of the things that I also want to, so we talked about transdisciplinary and transactional, as well as intersectional. So again, these are all terms, but ultimately what we're moving towards is intersectional funding. We want to be able to leverage not only trees, but the land itself, the air, and the health and the quality of an individual. We want to be able to look at holistically, and really, if we operate from the place of transformative, it's easier to make that case, because it's easier to talk about the individual, the community, the environment, the social, cultural aspects of it, because at the end of the day, as society is coming more in terms with climate change, the conversation is more apparent in the ethos of everyone's world. The heat island effect, the high rates of public health, housing, everything is now coming in the same conversion. So for us, we want to leverage that and continue to service our community and understand that we have to see urban forestry outside of just the perimeter that we have operated, to really include other areas that also open for other funding sources. So that is the internal conversation that we're having constantly. And how do we maintain true to our mission? How to maintain true to our communities? How to maintain true to our legacy that has been in LA for so long? But also that we know the fear of what happens when you grow too fast. And I think that's something that we have to navigate constantly. Do we stay true to our mission? Do we stay true to our communities? And do we stay true to our purpose? And the purpose can shift. It depends on each organization, and every organization is different. The organization that we were 34 years ago is much grander than now than it was then. The mission's still the same, the philosophy is still the same, and the culture is still the same. And it's because we have, champions like Aaron that has maintained, his position for 30 plus years. And as a matter of fact, today we're celebrating his 30th anniversary at Northeast Trees. So again, what I find about this community, and really all of us, is that really this shift is happening to all of us. And it's a matter of like, how are we communicating with one another? How are we sharing resources? And how are we improving at the end that the well-being and the environmental well-being of all Californians, as in Fresno, as in Northeast LA. So that's the other thing too, is that I really want to showcase the shift that is happening internally at Northeast Street right now.
We've
Yes.
got a couple questions here in the back. We're gonna start here and then we'll go to you next.
Thank you, Luis. I really admire your passion for your projects. And I'm Corinne. I'm in Cambria, California, and I have a little different orientation than a lot of people here. I'm not in as urban an area, and we
Right.
deal more with forestry. So we're a private land trust. So Mona hit my question about what your funding was. Do you have any membership-based funding at all?
You know, that's a really great question. That's actually that is something that our director of development and I and Aaron and all of us are talking about. And that is something that we're going to move into. It's actually a project that we're going to launch this year. And we are thinking of doing it with young people. We are thinking of, doing a campaign targeted to young people. And again, we're just thinking, who is the population? How can we attract who we already attract? And how can we leverage what we already have instead of creating new, trying to get these upper middle class funders who can, donate $1,000. We're like, can we just get 100 young people to donate $20? Again, it's about rethinking who our audience is, rethinking what our purpose, and really listening to the communities that are already engaging with us. That's the one thing that I want to make sure that you all have access to, is listening to the people that they're already engaged with you. Ask them, bring them in the conversation. You'll be surprised. Like, I am constantly surprised when I get called out, especially by our volunteers, but also when I get called in to their thoughts and how they can grow our organization. And I think that has probably been the most significant lesson that I have learned in my short time at Northeast Trees, is that our volunteers want to call us in to grow our efforts. And I think that the culture invites for that dialogue to happen. The culture at Northeast Trees invites for that dialogue to happen.
The other piece of my question was, I loved your video. How do you reach out? How do you promote yourself, your organization?
So that's a great question. We constantly struggle about that, but Instagram, I hate to say social media. Our social media intern is in college, and she is 20 years old, but her videos attract other 20-year-olds, and we just let her do it. One of the amazing lessons that in culture that Aaron has brought is, like, when you see somebody who's just really good at what they love to do, let them do it. Just let them do it. You'll be surprised when you put a passionate person that has strong skill sets, what they can do. And when they feel touched to do the work, to go above and beyond, and obviously we will reward them constantly with praises and cuttings and ability to plant a tree, but that the fact that they want to. And I think that is something that we have allowed to live in our organization. Passionate people lead through passion. Obviously, skill set is an important part, and we want to navigate that, and we want to make sure that the skill set matches the passion as well. Any other question?
Yeah. Erin, congratulations on your 30th anniversary. I've known you guys all these years. And because it's the occasion of the anniversary, could you say something briefly about the wonderful human being who started Northeast Trees, who's no longer with us? Thank you.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity. Yes, Scott Wilson was the gentleman who founded Northeast Trees over 30 years ago. And obviously he was a mentor, a teacher, and many things to me personally. But Scott, some of you here know and remember him, most of you probably not, but he was a World War II vet. So over 90 years old when he finally passed away. And by the way, he passed away having a heart attack while he was in a tree. He was climbing a tree at 91 years old. Just like, what are you thinking, man? But he died doing what he loved to do. But Scott, his background was, he was a high school horticulture teacher for those from the LA area. He started some of the best agriculture programs in LA, one at Crenshaw High School, one at North Hollywood High. and the other at Eagle Rock High School. When he retired after many decades as a school teacher, he became a a licensed landscape architect, a certified arborist, and a licensed landscape contractor, which he also taught. And so he created this nonprofit organization built around those skill sets. And it is to this day what makes Northeast Trees, it's our niche is that we do continue to have landscape architects on our staff and landscape contractors on our staff, certified arborists, and we work with youth. And that's kind of our formula that Scott passed down. And we keep that legacy going to this day. So he's been a big part of urban forestry in the state of California, and so much of what we all do today is a byproduct of his passion and his work.
Well, thank you for